Hi, John Michael Bliss again here for Grow, Love, Expand. I'm going to continue my talk on health. My last video was about health, getting the body moving, and today I'm going to talk about diet and diets, and the facade of all these diets. I mean, really break it down. I mean, if you really think about it, all these, so many diets out there, paleo, keto, what the South Beach diet, grapefruit diet, drinking only lemon juice. I mean, there's endless amounts of so-called diets out there, which whatever floats your boat, but here's the reality. You want to know the truth? Everyone talks about, well, the caveman, they used to eat, the caveman diet, they ate meat and nuts and things. Yeah, you know what else they didn't do? They didn't eat a lot. Why? Because they didn't have a lot of food. Okay? The truth of the matter is, they just didn't eat a lot. We have refrigerators, we have pantries full of food. We're eating all the time. You want to know the best diet in the world? Stop eating. All right? Just don't eat as much. That's the reality here. I mean, we talk about all these diets and this, flim flam, and all this stuff. I don't care what you do, it's still calories in, calories out, right? I mean, and we're constantly eating. We're constantly putting stuff in our mouth. We're drinking, eating all the time. And people wonder, oh my God, we're gaining weight. Well, yeah, because we're just eating all the time. When back in the day, they didn't have refrigerators and pantries. Plus they had to actually catch their food or go out and gather, which, is not always the easiest thing to do. I mean, there could be days where maybe they didn't eat, right? Which brings us into fasting, right? Which we'll talk about that in another video, how great fasting is for the body. But the truth of the matter is about diets. I don't care which diet you on, don't eat a lot. You know, um, they say what a portion size is in your hand. We're constantly eating. Stop it, right? It doesn't really matter, all these so-called experts. Plus, another thing that drives me up the bazoo and bananas is, we should only be carb man. We should be paleo. We shouldn't be vegan. We shouldn't be vegetarian. How do you know? How many species of animals are on this earth? How many? Do they all eat the same thing? Are they all consuming the same types of food? Well, how many people? We're the animal kingdom as well. How many people and different types of people are on earth? How many? Should we all be eating the same thing? I mean, come on. Let's have a little bit of common sense. Let's take it down and back down to a little reality here. I should be, maybe vegetarian works for you. Maybe being a vegan works for you. That's your body type. Maybe eating meat isn't really for you. Maybe for somebody else it is. I suggest you stop all this nonsense and to really get more in tune with your diet. What really feels good to you? What works for you? How does the body react to a certain type of food? Do you like dairy or you don't like dairy? Maybe your body doesn't react to dairy as well, so you don't eat dairy, right? And I mean, really, honestly, we're the only species that eats dairy after our birth. I mean, no other animal species does that, right? So, I mean, maybe there's an indication, Um, are there things to be said about, well, you don't see a bird out there making bread, right? You don't see a cougar, maybe, these types of processed foods aren't the best for us. One can make an argument for that, right? But the truth of the matter is, I invite you to be more in tune with your bodies and to what actually foods feel best for you. I've always said this too. So I believe that my theory here is, let's just say that, the source, the infinite wisdom of all things, God got us all that is, whatever the case may be. Let's just use for simplistic terms, the sun, right? You have the sun. What was like sort of the initial, like an amoeba, right? An amoeba grows, algae, and then life sprouts, but the basic form of life. So it could be possible that maybe one of the basic, most nutritional foods on the planet is like algae. I'm sure you probably heard of blue-green algae, right? But I've also had this thought process that, so when we're born, there's a disconnect from source, right? We forget kind of who we are when we come through the canal, and we have this sort of forgetfulness of any other past lives we might have had, or who we are, what we are, where we came from. And we spend a lifetime trying to achieve this awareness or grow into this awareness. So you are sort of in this human realistic frame mode, and you're eating a certain human diet, right? Which, let's face it, consists of a lot of meat and these kinds of things, processed foods and all these kinds of things, right? Which maybe in the beginning, your body is more apt to be able to handle it. But let's just say that an event occurs in your life or something happens spiritually that you start to become more aware of who you are and what you are and maybe where you came from. And you spiritually become more aware of who you are, which therefore could that also change the foods that you eat. So is it possible that as we grow more aware that our desire for more high frequency foods, higher nutritional foods, is more in demand? And maybe by eating higher nutritional foods, we actually do eat less because we don't need as much nutrients to fuel our body, right? And so, like, as we grow spiritually, let's just say that you have some amazing spiritual reality and life starts to change for you, and your complete perception of who and what you are is totally different than what you were 10 years ago. And maybe meat was a primary reality, dense food, let's say, not just meat, but dense food was a priority of your reality. And now as you grow spiritually, you become more sort of enlightened, which means your lighter body, you need more high frequency foods, and those densiality foods no longer agree with you. And if you continue to eat that, we start to become ill, right? And so that's where maybe a lot of disease comes in, right? Because we're a disconnect from self to a certain degree, or we're not eating in congruency or conjunction with what our body is actually craving or needs, right? So I'm not saying don't do diets. I'm not saying do any of those things, but I am saying portion control, because I think we're eating way too much out there. And I think you really have to look at, does paleo work for you? Does keto work for you? Does vegan work for you? Vegetarian work for you? I don't care what anybody says out there, okay? Follow your own body. Follow what your body tells you. Start to become aware of your diet. Start to become aware of what you eat and how it feels to you. And no one has to say, this goes out, this goes out. No, really, what you do is different than what someone else's do, and someone else does, and someone else does. It's like when I go into a gym, when I would train somebody, on weights, which I do mainly calisthenics anymore. I do not lift weights. It's all push-ups, squats, yoga, salutations, these kinds of things. And I used to see trainers go, no, do it this way. And it's, every particular exercise may be different for each person because of maybe the way they're built, their bone structure, the way they move. Maybe their flexibility isn't as strong. Maybe they had a shoulder issue, and they never took that into account. I'm like, oh man, with all the different types of people, wouldn't it only make sense that there could be different training methods, maybe different ways to lift a particular weight, or maybe that particular method of lifting that weight or that particular exercise doesn't work for that person, so we have to look at other things. Same thing with diet. Maybe that particular diet doesn't work for you, does work for somebody else, right? Long and short of it is, forget all this garbage, okay, about all these diets and everything else. Start thinking about, how does food affect you? What types of foods affect you? Become more aware and attuned of your own body. There's all these things like Lean Cuisine, Jenny Craig, Weight Watch, everybody, but what are they really doing? Portion control. Really, just portion control. You're not eating as much. When you don't eat as much, guess what? You don't gain weight because you're eating proportionally to what your activity level is. Okay, we're not constantly consuming. So I just really want you to think about that for a second. With all these diets, reality is, in the past, they just didn't eat that much food, okay? Because there wasn't that much to go around. They didn't have pantries and refrigerators. So with that, John Michael Bliss here for Grow, Love, and Expand. Thank you for listening and watching. Spread the word. You're wonderful. Remember just who you are. Love yourself. Peace and love always. Have a great rest of your day.